Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk proposed that Turkey take an active role in initiating peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. At a joint press conference with Turkish President Recep Erdogan, Tusk said both Turkey and Poland have wanted peace since Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022.
W sprawie Ukrainy i Rosji stanowisko Polski jest oczywiste, znane od pierwszych dni agresji rosyjskiej na Ukrainę. Podobnie jak Turcja, Polska pragnie jak najszybszego rozejmu i pokoju.
Erdogan emphasised that membership of the European Union is a strategic goal of Turkey, saying if the European Union wants to prevent and even reverse a loss of power and altitude, it can only do so with Turkey's full membership. Reserve peacekeeping soldiers arrived in Bosnia as NATO reaffirmed its commitment to preserving peace amid tensions created by Bosnian Serb leader Milorad Dodik. Military personnel from Italy and the Czech Republic touched down at Sarajevo airport, where they were greeted by commanders from the European Union force in Bosnia, known as EUFOR. Over the coming days, they will be supplemented by troops from Romania, as well as helicopters and other military supplies. NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte pledged the military alliance's unwavering support for Bosnia's territorial integrity. His comments come after a series of Bosnian Serb separatist moves which raised tensions nearly 30 years after the end of a bloody civil war. Romania's constitutional court unanimously voted to uphold a decision rejecting ultra-nationalist Călin Georgescu's candidacy in upcoming presidential elections, sparking a fresh round of protests by his supporters.
Now, this decision is final and cannot be overturned according to Romanian law, which left his political allies scrambling to find a suitable replacement in time, especially since raising the required number of signatures to register a new candidate might prove to be a challenge.
Last weekend, Romania's Central Electoral Committee suspended Georgescu's application, stating his actions and statements contravened the values of the presidential office. Dubbed the TikTok Messiah, Georgescu came out on top in the first round of Romania's presidential elections last year. However, the country's constitutional court annulled the vote following the declassification of intelligence reports showing Russian involvement in influencing voters through social media to support the then relatively unknown candidate. Georgescu is also facing criminal proceedings including anti-constitutional acts and misreporting his campaign finances.
The Kremlin said on Wednesday it was awaiting details from Washington about a proposal for a 30-day ceasefire in Ukraine. Moscow has repeatedly rejected freezing hostilities along the current front line, believing it has the upper hand on the battlefield.
I can't see them accepting anything that doesn't legitimize their land grab and ethnic cleansing in Ukraine. That's what they will set out to get from these negotiations. They've made it clear it's not, as they often say, for external consumption about NATO expansion. It's about destroying the Ukrainian people and destroying the Ukrainian state. That is still the objective. And the fear is that if you simply freeze this conflict, that you just freeze the injustice, you freeze the occupation, you freeze the displacement.
Putin himself has repeatedly rejected the possibility of a temporary ceasefire, saying that he was focused on addressing what he calls the, quote, root causes of the conflict.
But one thing I think that's interesting and perhaps worth emphasizing is how shaky Putin's commitments are to some of his objectives. Look back to 2023 with the rebellion of Yevgeny Prigozhin. Look how far they advanced in one day, 800 kilometers in one day, and nobody came out to support Putin. There weren't all these banners saying, we support Putin, stop this Yevgeny. People were looking for selfies with Yevgeny Prigozhin in Rostov-on-Don. So the regime in that respect is quite fragile. And I think that, and this is the pity that Trump isn't applying pressure on Putin, because he has so much potential to apply pressure. And power in Russia is much more important to Putin than victory in Ukraine.
Thank you very much. That's all.
Volodymyr Zelensky said on Wednesday, Ukraine has shown it is willing to adopt a ceasefire. Now, he says, Russia needs to respond.
This building in the heart of Brussels is at the center of intense political discussions within the European Union. Euroclear is believed to hold 258 billion euros in frozen Russian assets. The 27 are divided over whether this money should be confiscated to support Ukraine. This divide is reflected in the European Parliament, which debated the issue on Wednesday. Some member countries, such as France and Belgium, believe that seizing these assets would be illegal and are urging caution.
This is the reason why the different governments which are particularly involved together with the European Central Bank and other EU institutions are working to verify what are the legal and financial possibilities. It's clear that, if there were no risk on the market and no risk from the legal certainty to confiscate the Russian fund, we would push to confiscate them immediately.
For the time being, the EU has already seized the interest on these assets, valued at €3 billion per year. Others point out that confiscating Russian assets could also threaten the confidence of foreign investors in the single currency. The Baltic states, Poland, and other countries close to the Russian border that wish the money to be seized reject this argument.
Any decision needs to be anchored in international law. So as long as international law is abided in the confiscation, it is possible to do it. It's a separate thing. Euro stability and the euro market is very reliable for anyone to invest into.
The capitals that are defending prudence believe that these Russian funds could also enable the Union to invite itself to the table of any peace negotiations. What's more, these assets could be used as a bargaining chip.
Prime Minister Luis Montenegro lost a confidence vote in the parliament, resulting in the collapse of Portugal's government. Portuguese President Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa can now either dissolve the parliament and call for new elections, or appoint another prime minister and try a new government in the same parliamentary framework.
Uma delas é haver novo governo com o mesmo ou com outro primeiro-ministro indicado pelo partido político que tem sido o partido de apoio parlamentar, os dois partidos, ou governo com mais apoio parlamentar de outro partido, mas não parece que isso seja muito possível. E a única solução é realmente haver eleições legislativas antecipadas.
After holding talks with the parties that make up the parliament, the Portuguese president will formally disband the current legislative body and will announce new elections. Montenegro has denied any wrongdoing and said he will try to regain his post by running again in the upcoming snap elections. However, opposition parties are demanding a more detailed explanation from him about his actions. The Socialist Party is also calling for a parliamentary inquiry, which could lead to a prolonged investigation.
As sondagens que neste momento existem dão o PSD muito longe dessa maioria absoluta, porque o PSD neste momento, nas várias sondagens, as confirmadas semana após semana, pela casa dos 30%, 31%, de 30% para chegar a 44% ou 43%, ainda falta muito. Eu acho que é difícil, digamos, haver tempo para mudar.
Sondagens recentes também não apontam nesse sentido. A coligação de governo caiu cerca de 2 pontos percentuais nas intenções de voto, mas é o Chega quem tem a maior perda, descendo de 17% para 13%. Já o PS mantém-se na casa dos 28%. Joana Mourão Carvalho para a Euronews, em Lisboa.
This is a turning point in the EU's migration policy. The European Commission has introduced a regulation that will allow member states to deport rejected asylum seekers to third countries, even if they have never set foot in them, and detain them in return hubs.
On the return hubs, we are creating the scope for member states in a way to explore to explore new solutions for return, and of course only for people who have no right to stay in the European Union. We are creating the legal frame, we're not creating the content.
In 2024, 20% of the persons who were ordered to leave the EU were sent back to their country of origin. This Austrian MEP welcomes a proposal that would speed up returns.
Cases outside the European Union, in third countries, which do respect, of course, human rights and all the, I would say, values of civilization Europe wants to see respected, can be good places and proper places for those who should return for a specific time, period of time, and this is what the Commission proposal addresses.
NGOs are sounding the alarm. They denounce a punitive approach which opens the door to human rights violations and reinforces the link between immigration and crime. According to one Italian MEP, another point of contention is that people in an irregular situation could be deported to countries with which they have no connection.
Si parla di paesi che devono rispettare i diritti umani, ma non c'è alcun requisito specifico per cui, per esempio, questi paesi non viene chiesto di essere firmatari, per esempio, delle convenzioni di Ginevra, per dire.
The European Commission would not be involved in the signing of these deals or in the construction of return centers. It lays the legal foundations that, if approved, would allow governments to pass agreements with non-European countries ready to receive rejected asylum seekers in exchange for financial incentives.